Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska, on my way to Ohio. So I'm not going to do any history or anything today because I want to just get to the point of this video. So with the experience that I've had with trainees and talking to lots of other drivers and stuff, I started thinking about what motivates people to do this trucking thing, and in particular to come to a company like Prime that's an OTR company. And if you're not familiar with the fake advertisement that Adam Sandler did, I think when he hosted Saturday Night Live, about the travel company doing trips to Italy, and it's kind of a knockoff on this actual advertisement that used to be on TV all the time for this family-owned travel company taking people to the old country. But if you're not familiar with that, watch the video, and I've put a link in the description, because it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of true, and it kind of applies here. So if you watch the video, or even if you didn't, basically the premise is, hey, you could pay for a trip to, Rome and Palermo and Milan and Florence, but if you're depressed when you get on that plane, you're still going to be depressed in Italy. Like, if you're struggling in relationships, when you get on the plane, nothing's going to change just because you went to Italy. And that's kind of the theme of what I wanted to talk about. When I was in the Navy, I remember it was pretty early on in my career, maybe even when I was in boot camp. And it was this guy, I don't remember who it was. He wasn't somebody that was in my chain of command, but he said everybody in the Navy is running from something, right? And back then, you could literally be trying to get out of criminal charges. Like, the judge would be like, you're either going to jail or you're going in the military. I mean, that used to be a thing. And then unfortunately, the military actually said, well, we're not going to take people that have gotten that ultimatum. I was in the Navy with a lot of guys not a lot, but a few guys who got that from a judge, and I got to thinking about it. Everybody's running from something, whether it's, they want to get out of their hometown. They want a job that has a consistent paycheck and a future and benefits. They are running because they got arrested and they want to stay out of jail. They broke up with their baby mama, and they got to support the kids still, so they joined the Navy. So they have, there could be any number of reasons, right? And I've come to find out that trucking is a lot like that. And I guess you could say, and I'll point the finger at myself first, right? I guess you could say that I was running from something when I got laid off in 2018. I could have found another law job, but I was just, I don't know if I would use the word overwhelmed. I don't think I was overwhelmed. I was just maybe over it, right? I just got, I got sick of people caring about, insignificant amounts of money, and or significant amounts, but they just had their priorities screwed up, and I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I just went on the road, and I didn't do it right, because I just took my Sprinter and started going out, and hauling stuff around. That was fun, but it wasn't really as lucrative as it needed to be for me at the time. There are certain circumstances where I would go back to doing that. Shut up. I'm doing a video. So Hey! I swear if you bark again, lay down. I want to apologize for that. So, you know, I just, you know, I wish I would have done things a little bit different, but it got me to a profession that, you know, meets my needs and suits my personality. Okay, I'll say it that way. So, but a lot, you know, so a lot of people I feel like kind of have similar experiences to what I had. They had a career, or they had a you know, job, and it no longer worked for them, and they're just like, you know what, let me take this plunge and go crazy and become a truck driver. Now, maybe they knew a truck driver, maybe they didn't, maybe they're the first person in their family to ever do it. And everybody does it for slightly different reasons. But here's where I'm going with this, and this is important. You know, I always talk about being self-aware and being honest with oneself. And I think it's important to note that, you know, I've come across trainees, and you know, other drivers I know have come across trainees who, you know, they come to Prime because they want to have, you know, what people like me, you know, have, right? They want to make, you know, good money and have this freedom and have this truck, and they kind of control their own destiny, and they can, you know, for the first time in their life, maybe they can say no when somebody asks them to do something, and they can, you know, pile up money week after week. And, you know, I mean, let's be honest. If you're leasing at Prime, you know, like I'm across from a Wendy's, I guarantee that I have weeks at Prime where I net more than the manager of that Wendy's probably does. I do it in 1 week what they do in 1 month. Okay, so that's very alluring. It's a very almost intoxicating idea, right? But here's the thing, and this is where I think a lot of people miss this. When you come to a company like Prime, you know, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. The secret to making money driving a truck is to drive a truck, okay? If the wheels aren't turning, you're not making any money. And you're actually burning money if you're leasing. You know, I'm actually going home. I'm going to be home for a few days. I don't know how long. But, you know, I already have visibility to a really, you know, a decent week. I think I'll be north of $6,000 gross when I drop this load off on Tuesday afternoon. Once I do those trip reports, I'll be north of $6,000 for the week. I don't know what I'll net, but it doesn't, you know, I'll find out on Friday, right? So I can, you know, I'm comfortable taking a few days off. You know, my wife says, yeah, you know, we're good to go. And so that's what I can do, and I don't have to ask permission. I don't, you know, but I know that every second that this truck isn't moving, within reason, I mean, I still got to take my breaks, right? But, you know, when a day goes by where this truck isn't generating revenue, it not only is not generating revenue, but it's still costing me money. And a lot of people get really focused on how much you can make, and they don't get focused on how to avoid not making a bunch of money, right? Because no one ever says, yeah, I really like this job, and it costs me money to do it, right? No one wants to work for nothing, okay? And so it's important that you understand going in that this is a huge commitment. And yeah, you can walk away from the lease, but do you want to put all this effort into it to just walk away and, you know, find something else to do, or find another company to drive with, where you might only start out at, like, you know, 45 cents a mile, as a company driver. I know there are a lot of companies that advertise, 70 cents a mile. Believe only half of what you read on the backs of semi-trailers. And so I want everybody to understand that it takes a lot of commitment to be successful at this. I know, look, I make a lot of stuff look easy, right? Like being like strikingly handsome with boyish good looks at the age of 60, I make it look easy, okay? But it's not. It's a lot of work, okay? And so is making money driving a truck. It's a lot of work some days. And, my previous video, I expressed a lot of frustration about the things you have to endure or deal with as a truck driver. And, some days are great. Like the day I drove from Salinas down to Oxnard, I went down to the 101. Man, it was the best. I was only doing like 58 miles an hour because the speed limit's 55, right? But I was enjoying the scenery, driving by the Pacific Ocean. I was like, cool, this is cool, I was really enjoying myself. And, today was easy. Got up this morning in Laramie, set my cruise at 58. Here I am in Omaha, right? Easy day. And, in the next 2 days, I got to go maybe like 700 miles in the next 2 days to deliver early. In the window, but early. But there are also days that are, really a pain in the butt. Like when you have to swap out trailers, when you're stranded somewhere, when your truck is broken down. Like I spent New Year's Eve in a hotel paying for it out of my own pocket because my truck derated. That's gonna happen. And if you don't understand all the little things that can bite you, it's going to be hard. There's this, as somebody told me recently, not that I didn't know this, but they're like, they mentioned that your first year or so, there's a steep learning curve. And, I think that what people need to do is be honest with themselves. If they're in if they're in a place in their life where they got to be home fairly frequently, and I don't care whether it's like they're caring for a spouse or a parent, right, or they're sharing that, their children are at crucial points in their lives, which basically means 0 to 18, right, is everything's crucial. I've seen these people on YouTube that were like, oh, I took an OTR job and I have teenagers at home and I'm upset because I'm missing their sporting events and their, theater performance. I'm like, duh, right? You can't make a living in OTR and be home all the time. I saw this truck the other day. I think I was in Cali. It said, more miles, more money, more home time. And I'm like, not all at once, you are not. You're not going to make a lot of money driving, 12 out of 12 days and then being home for 2 days. Just the process of getting you home and then getting you a load to get back on the road, that's going to add another 24 to 48 hours to your schedule. And then depending on how the pay weeks work, we already talked about this, P. He's walked by 3 times. He's just walking laps. Leave the man alone. Just because you want to be home, that the company is going to be like, yeah, okay, fine. But the meter's running. The meter's running every second. So if you got to be honest with yourself, because I think there are people that have, in fact, I know people fail at lots of stuff in life, right? That's part of life, is failure, right? We learn from it. But you don't want to come here and fail because you didn't change your outlook. You didn't take care of stuff in your life. I mentioned this, I think I mentioned this on the channel one time. You know, when I was getting ready to take the bar exam, I was reading all the prep materials, like, you know, you have to study all the subjects that are going to be tested. But one of the great things I read was not about what was being tested, but it was about the mindset for successfully studying for and passing the bar exam. And I can tell you from personal experience, I sat for the bar in Maryland, in California, and in Arizona. It's stressful. But one of the things that I remember them kind of like guidance they provided was, you know, treat it like a job, which I did every day. 8 hours a day I was in the books, and I took breaks. I was very disciplined about that. But the other thing they said is, you know, don't start a relationship, don't end a relationship. And I mean, I guess if you really got to get out, you got to get out. But their message was, don't do anything that's a distraction from what you're trying to prepare for. And kind of the corollary to that in this occupation is, if stuff at home requires you to be there to fix, and it could be anything, right? And you know, anybody that's deployed in the military knows, you know, when your spouse is not home, you know, like your spouse is left behind, they got to handle everything. It's kind of the same on the road. It's not quite the same thing, because you're not gone for 6 months or a year, and you're not like on the other side of the globe. You're gone for 4 weeks, but you're on the other side of the country. Okay, it's a little bit different. But on a day-to-day basis, right, you have to be able to let that stuff go so you can focus on what you're doing out here. Because if you don't, and you can't, you're not going to make any money. You're going to be taking loads so you can get closer to home. And you know, like, I happen to be fortunate in that I live in a what I would call a target-rich area. There's a lot of stuff, because I live in the DC, Baltimore area. So there's a lot of stuff coming into my area, and even like all the warehouses and stuff up in eastern Pennsylvania, like from Harrisburg to Allentown to Bethlehem, they're not very far from where I live. And also where I live, there's still a fair amount of stuff going out. So like Hershey's is not very far, Dreyer's is not very far. Who else is up there? There's some other candy people up there. There's, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff moving around. And even if I have to go over to Vineland, New Jersey, Vineland, New Jersey is like 2.5 hours from my house, right? And I can pick up a produce load, head west, right? Get into these places where you make money. But if you're in a place that doesn't kind of fit that description, every time you go home, it's going to be costing you. And you know, when you feel like you're already sacrificing, your family feels like you're already sacrificing, and the money's not there, in a big hurry, you're going to be looking for the exit. And the reason I tell you all this is because I want you to be, I enjoy my job. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but I enjoy my job. I enjoy the friendships I've made. I enjoy the things that I've done. I've gotten to do stuff, even though I was pretty well traveled before I came into trucking, I've gotten to go to some places I never would have had any reason to go to. And so that's super cool. You know, I did a video, it was when I was at GP Transco, and I just shot this video from, you know, my dash of this canyon that I drove through in Wyoming that never in a million years I would have gone, you know, down this canyon or up this canyon, whatever I did. And, you know, so I've gotten to do a lot of cool stuff. And in part because in my previous life, I used to just fly everywhere. I mean, when I was practicing law and I worked at a hedge fund for a while, I was on a plane every week pretty much. I was back and forth cross country all the time, you know. But I never like drove places, because that's not what you do. You get on a plane, you fly, and then you rent a car, and you go to a hotel, and you go to restaurants, and you meet clients or whatever. This has been a different life, and I've enjoyed it. I'll be ready to be done with it when I'm done, but I have enjoyed it. And but that means necessarily being on the road. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions about this. I hope this resonates with some people. And this isn't to talk you out of being a trucker, but when you come here, you got to have your head in the game. You got to, like, when you have a trainer, you got to want to soak up every bit of information they can give to you. Because, like, I can't remember, it was something just a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I learned something, right? And I was like, dang, you learn something new every day. And I've been doing this for a while now, over 4 years. And whatever it was, I wish I could remember so I could give you a great example. But whatever it was, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'd never had any reason to know that, or I never realized it. You know what I'm saying? So just know that this is different. It's not necessarily harder than what you've done. It's different. And it's not going to change. And it's relentless, right? The meter is always running. It's always running. So like, I got a whole bunch of fixed costs on this truck every single week. It doesn't matter if I ran 0 miles or 10,000 miles, I still got those costs. Excuse me. So anyway, I share that with you. I hope it's useful information for somebody, and I hope it helps inform your decision. Because I feel like if you're mentally prepared for what you're going to face, then you can be successful. But if you don't have your head in it, and you're still looking back home all the time, and you're still on the phone constantly, it's a hard life, and it's probably not for you. You're not at the right place in your life to be successful here. And yeah, if it was like I used to tell my sailors, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. And it's true here. If this was that easy, if it was that easy to make like 6 figures driving around the country enjoying the scenery, everybody'd be doing it. But it's not for everybody. And if it's for you, that's cool. Welcome to the club. If it's not for you, that's okay too. But the sooner you know it, the happier you'll be with your decision. So anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.